What's up YouTube? This is Joey Boy and I've got another team of the week for you guys. Today we're going to be doing a little something different. You know, the last two teams have kind of gone over, have both been pretty offensive. First one being Sand, second one being Rain. So today we're going to be going over a Sunstall team. Now we're going to quickly look over it before we show team building. As you'll see here, it's kind of standard. You know, obviously we have Ninetales, who sets up the sun. Forretress sets up some always needed hazards and can get spins off. Dugtrio is very important for trapping and sets up stealth rocks. We have the super strong defensive core of Slowbro and Chansey. And the last Pokemon here is Latias, who is kind of our finisher because it can boost up with a lot of Calm Minds against opposing stall teams, especially when Dugtrio has rid the opponent's side of Tyranitar and Heatrans. And plus it gives us a very, very strong counter even to Keldeo. Now, since we've looked at it just very briefly, we're going to go into team building. So, I've always had a thing, I guess, for Sunstall, especially after I started using the team called Dot Dancing. If you don't know what team that is, it was a Sunstall team that was on Smogan's Rate My Team forum for a while, and it was very strong. It utilized Dugtrio on Sunstall to kind of get rid of very problematic Pokemon. So Sunstall, again, something I've always had a, I guess you could say, passion for. I always thought it was a very strong team style, so I wanted to build a Sunstall team. Obviously, if you need Sunstall, there's only one Pokemon who is your linchpin, and that would be Ninetales. You know, a lot of people say Ninetales is not a very good Pokemon, and while I would maybe tend to agree, there is one Ninetales set that has actually never let me down, and that would be especially defensive Ninetales. We're going to use Leftovers and Drought, obviously, and the moveset is Flamethrower, Will-O-Wisp, Protect, and Roar. Roar is probably the linchpin of the set, as it lets you phase out Pokemon like Calm Mind Latias, who is a big threat to Sunstall, especially this team if it's the sub-Calm Mind. And for the spread, we go for a fairly standard one. I tend to run quite a bit of speed on Ninetales, enough to outspeed Jolly Mamoswine. I do this because Jolly Mamoswine is a very big threat to Sunstall, even though I have I have two Pokemon who can check it pretty well. And this speed also allows Ninetales to outspeed Jolly Breloom as well, and revenge kill it with Flamethrower. So there we go. That is Ninetales spread. Its whole set. Very simple. It does what it needs to do. It can Will-O-Wisp Tyranitars if they try and come in, or Hippowdons, Politoads even. You know, it can take Scalds from defensive Politoads. This still should not be... you shouldn't be switching especially defensive Ninetales into something like a Specs Politoad, ever. Anyway, the next Pokemon I added is a defensive core. Kind of hold the stall team together. And as you saw before, the first Pokemon was Slowbro. Slowbro is a Pokemon that I think fits very well into Sunstall. As, again, if you guys are familiar with Dot Dancing, its primary physical wall is Cresselia. And Cresselia is really great in the sun. And it was the best check to Landorus Eye that Sunstall could get. But now that Landorus is banned, I decided to maybe try and switch it up, and so I went with Slowbro. Slowbro still is just a phenomenal check to things like Terrakion, all those fighting types, and it just has more reliable recovery than Cresselia does, and that's why I chose it. Cresselia is great, but it can still be caught very unawares against Pokemon like Tyranitar. Even though we're running Dugtrio on this team, Tyranitar is still a threat, and if Cresselia is removed, Pokemon like Terrakion could ravage this team. So I went with Slowbro. Leftovers, pretty standard item. Regenerator is just such a great ability. As you'll see later, I'm going to show a replay of me using this team. Regenerator is a big help in that game. So for the set, I went with Psyshock over Psychic because it lets us hit Terrakions in the sand much harder. I went with Ice Beam because Slowbro is actually our, it is one of our main defenders against Dragon-type Pokemon like Dragonite or Garchomp, and the ×4 effective Ice Beam is very useful. And then I went with Flamethrower because a lot of Steel types tend to stay in on Slowbro. And Flamethrower is just really helpful, especially since we have our Sun up. Slowbro gets a pseudo stab boost to Flamethrower. And then for the last moveset, I went with Slack Off to give us that reliable recovery. A very standard spread, max defense to hold off those physical attackers. And the second part of our two-man Uber core is Chansey. Chansey is very good in Sunstall. Obviously you need to use Eviolite rather than Leftovers. Natural Cure. And the set I went for was Wish, Softboiled, Seismic Toss, and Toxic. And then this spread, max defense, because it actually doesn't need any more special defense. So Wish and Softboiled are great. Wish allows me to, pass those wishes, obviously. But instead of running Protect, I run Softboiled because this way, Chansey can have that one-turn reliable recovery instead of having to use Wish Protect. Kind of have the best of both worlds with them both on this moveset. So these two check a ton of Pokemon together. And they both have reliable recovery. Chansey has Toxic and can whittle things down with Seismic Toss, so these guys are really good. They are kind of the core of the team. The next Pokemon I wanted to add is something most stall teams need. And Forretress fills two of those requirements, entry hazards and rapid spin support. We're going to go with Leftovers, Sturdy, and the moveset I'm running here definitely wants Spikes, and we are going to go with Toxic Spikes. Toxic Spikes are an interesting enigma in this metagame because some people will say they're useless, never use them, they're a waste of time, and others will say no, they're not useless, and I actually fall into the latter category, but only recently. Toxic Spikes, you have to know, are useless against certain matchups. Rain tends to be one of those, because Rain will usually have either a Tentacruel or a Toxicroak in there, in which case Toxic Spikes will not help pretty much throughout the entire game. But a matchup where Toxic Spikes are invaluable is Sand Offense. Sand Offense tends to carry a lot of Pokemon who are vulnerable to Toxic Spikes. Keldeo, Terrakion, Tyranitar, Hippowdon, Stoutland, Celebi can even though it has Natural Cure. All those Pokemon, Mamoswine, Breloom, if it's not Toxic Heal, all those Pokemon are going to hate those Toxic Spikes being up. So something I find really useful, if you're going to run Toxic Spikes, I like to run Spikes on the same set, because this way, Forretress always has something it can do. If the opposing team does have a Tentacruel, then instead of setting up Toxic Spikes, I can just set up Spikes, and it's all good. So the next slot, obviously you need Rapid Spin, and I went for a maybe unconventional choice here. I went for Hidden Power Ice on this Forretress, and the reason I do that is because sub-toxic Gliscor is a huge pain. Because, you know, it's going to be outspeeding most of my Pokemon. It can get those toxics off and just begin stalling everyone out, as no one will be able to outspeed it except, you know, a little later Latias, but it's very vulnerable to toxic. So I went with Hidden Power Ice over Gyro Ball because Slowbro is my main switch in to Mamoswine. Or is my main way of taking it on. My team isn't too weak to Mamoswine. You know, Ninetales can outspeed it, as you saw before. Slowbro can beat it one-on-one, unless it's maybe Life Orb or Choice Band. So Forretress is my main switch to Gliscors, because sub-toxic Gliscor is a pain. Seriously. And this way, you know, I can go into Gliscor, set up some hazards, while maybe he's just gonna EQ me, and then hit him with Hidden Power Ice. Hidden Power Ice is also really great because we are running a physically defensive Forretress. That way we can definitely take Outrages from Dragon-type Pokemon and do a hefty chunk with Hidden Power Ice. The next Pokemon we do could be considered a linchpin of the team. It's going to be Dugtrio. Dugtrio is very often seen on Sun teams because it traps so many really annoying Pokemon for Sun. Tyranitar is the big one. Heatran is probably even a bigger one. And those two by themselves would probably satisfy having a Dugtrio on your team, but it can, you know, it can take out a lot more than that. Dugtrio is also our Stealth Rock setter. He's not the most reliable Stealth Rock setter, but it is the easiest way for us to fit Stealth Rocks on this team. Stealth Rock, Earthquake, Reversal, and I go with Rock Slide. Some people will run Stone Edge, but I find Rock Slide is just more reliable. Dugtrio, I like to use Dugtrio to try and take out Volcaronas a lot, and I don't want to be missing those Stone Edges. And Rock Slide will be taken out of Volcarona regardless, even with its lower power. So, this is a Focus Sash Dugtrio. If you don't know how it works, it's all about trapping those Pokemon. Dugtrio is great because as long as entry hazards aren't on your field, which they shouldn't be if Forretress is doing its job well, then you can just switch it right into Tyranitar, and it will 9 times out of 10 take that Tyranitar out. And once their sand is gone, you can beat them down. So, the final Pokemon I decided to add, I was looking over my team, and there is a Pokemon who is definitely still a threat, and I think I've mentioned it in every video I've made. Keldeo. Keldeo is still a big threat. The Expert Belt set in particular could do a lot of damage to my team. So I decided to add Latias, a Pokemon who's seen a lot of usage lately because it's such a great check to Keldeo. And I decided I wanted to go for a finisher. I wanted to go for a Calm Mind Latias. And the reason I did, because Calm Mind Latias has an awesome amount of synergy with the rest of my team. I'll show you guys the moveset first, and then I'll explain why the synergy is so strong. So we're going to go with Calm Mind, Roost, or Recover. So I have that reliable recovery, Dragon Pulse, and I went with Hidden Power Fire. Now, with Hidden Power Fire, you have this lowered speed IV, so I don't actually tend to run max speed on a Latias that has Hidden Power Fire because you're not even speed tying with other 110s like Latios is without Hidden Power Fire. So I run just enough speed to outpace Timid Keldeo, which is right there. Now, it's not a huge amount of difference, but I think adding these 12 EVs to here is useless, pretty much. So there you go, that's the Latias set. Now let me talk about why this Latias set just really flourishes blossoms, if you will, on this team. So, this Latias loves to come in at the end of games, when the opponent's team is weakened by spikes and stealth rocks, and if toxic spikes are on the field, even better, because then Latias can even just stall those toxic spike damages out. The second thing is that Dugtrio removes the even the 3 biggest threats to a Latias sweep. Number 1, Tyranitar. This Latias will not be getting by a Tyranitar ever, unless it's just a silly special defensive set that only has Pursuit. Number 2, Heatran. This Latias set will not be getting past a Heatran, unless it's fully offensive, with maybe Hidden Power Ice, and I can get some Calm Minds off. Third one, Jirachi. Jirachi, you know, you really don't necessarily want to be trapping Jirachi with Dugtrio, because plus Latias has this Sun boosted Hidden Power Fire towards the end game. So that shows you Dugtrio by itself removes so many of the threats to a Latias sweep. But not only is this Latias going to be a great finisher due to the rest of the team members, it also fills defensive synergy. Number 1, it stops Keldeo. It's another great switch in to Volt switches from Rotom W's, along with Chansey. Stuff like that. It gives me my highest speed. My highest speed is on this Latias. So as you can see, this Sun team is, I've got to say, it's very, very strong. I used it a lot on the recent Suspect ladder, and I will definitely be using it once the Keldeo Suspect test starts. So we're going to go over the team one more time, and then I'll show you guys a replay of me using this team. Ninetales sets up the Sun. We have enough speed to outpace Mamoswine, who's a big threat to Sunstall, along with Breloom. We have Roar, so we can roar out things like Calm Mind Latias, especially the sub-variant. Slowbro, our main physical wall, takes on a slew of physical attackers, including Terrakion, Landorus T, Dragonite, Salamence. It also runs Flamethrower, so that we are less afraid of stuff like Scizor U-turning on us. The second, our main special wall, Chansey, pretty much walls all physical attackers. Unless you are a sub-Calm Mind set, Chansey will wall you. You know, or if you let a nasty Plot Sweeper get the best of you, I suppose. Forretress, second physical wall, also our Rapid Spinner and Toxic and Hazard setter upper in general. Spikes and Toxic Spikes. Hidden Power Ice is there because Sub-Toxic Gliscor is a huge pain. Fifth Pokemon, Dugtrio, a huge help to our team, removing such threats to Tyranitar, Heatran, potentially Jirachis. It can take out weakened Politoads. It is also our Stealth Rock setter. Our final Pokemon, Latias, our number 1 switch in to Keldeo. It is our finisher with Calm Mind and Roost, and will just tear apart teams once the rest of our team has done its job. I really can't stress enough how strong this Latias is with this team support. Specifically, Ninetales, Dugtrio, and Latias, when you use them together in the right way, can just tear apart teams. For example, Sand Offense teams will fall pretty much to these 3 Pokemon. As long as you play Dugtrio well and can trap that Tyranitar or that Heatran, then you can set up your Sun with Ninetales and sweep the rest of their team with Latias. You know, Sand Offense, you know, they have things like Drakion and Keldeo, Celebi, Landorus T, Rotom W, Scizor. All these Pokemon will go down to this Latias. Very strong. This is probably my best defensive team I've ever made. I'm quite proud of the defensive synergy that it has, and the way all the team members mesh together to really help each other finish matches off. So with that said, I'm gonna get us into a replay. As you guys know, this is a defensive team, so some of the replays can be very boring, but I've found one that is fairly short and kind of shows you the strengths of the team. So here we go. I'm gonna pause it for a second while I get that replay up. Here we go. This is the replay of me using this Sunstall team. It was a ladder match that I found on the Suspect ladder. And as you can see, we're up against a fairly offensive sand team. Tyranitar is his sand setter upper. He has Keldeo and Stoutland and Garchomp, all very offensive, and he has this two-man defensive core and Amoonguss and Bronzong. Looking at this team, I can say I'm actually not very worried. As long as Dugtrio can trap Tyranitar, we should have no problems. So, getting into the game, I decide to lead off with Forretress because it has a very good team matchup against the rest of the teams. He leads with Bronzong. I'm going to set up some spikes here, knowing I can always rapid spin his Stealth Rocks if he tries to set them. He goes into Amoonguss. I decide to use Ninetales as sleep fodder because Ninetales will not be very important in this game besides setting up the sun. Once I've slept Ninetales, I go back into Forretress. Again, because it matches up well against the rest of them, and I see he has a Leftovers Tyranitar. I'm going to switch right into Dugtrio here, knowing I can trap this Tyranitar as he crunches, bringing me down to my Sash and giving me a full power reversal. This allows me to trap the Tyranitar, and boom, turn 5, we have trapped it. He goes into Stoutland. I decide to stay in here and just sack my Dugtrio. Even though I could potentially set up rocks with it later, I don't really need them in this game as many of his threats are grounded. So I go into Ninetales here to bring the sun up for the rest of the game, and now go back into Forretress knowing that he is locked into return. Now I'm going to take this opportunity to set up more spikes. I'm not setting up toxic spikes as you can see because he is running the Amoonguss. This is why having two forms of hazard on Garchomp, or excuse me, on Forretress is good, because I can still set up hazards even if he has a poison type. He goes into Garchomp. I decide to switch out here because I want to scout for the fire move, so I switch into Slowbro. And I believe here he reveals he does in fact, yep, he's running Fire Fang. And I don't see Leftovers or Life Orb, so the Fire Fang tells me he's more than likely the Choice Banded variant. Just to make sure though, I decide to Ice Beam here, because I don't want to maybe setting up a Swords Dance or something, as he goes into Bronzong. I have a very good switch into Bronzong, my own Forretress, because I can spin away any rocks he tries to set, plus, with Forretress Steel typing, I don't have to fear a Toxic, potentially, from this Bronzong. Which he does use. Miss didn't matter. Now, I'm going to be able to set up even more spikes here, as he is really beginning to sweat, if I had to guess. I'm pretty much 100% certain of my victory at this point. I go into Latias, our main switch into Keldeo, and as you can see, that Secret Sword is doing nothing, and I decided to just fire off a Dragon Pulse. I'm not going to set up just yet, because, you know, I like to set up Latias late game, even though this ends up being pretty late in this stage of the game. I go into Chansey, as he goes into Amoonguss, because I have nothing to fear with Chansey, and I can just Seismic Toss to get off damage, as he goes back into Bronzong. And I'm pretty sure I decide here to just, oh no, I switch out into Forretress, because if he sets up rocks, I want to spin those away immediately, as he goes into Stoutland. Right here, I'm going to scout for the fire move, as he just goes for the return. You know, he won't be 2-hit KOing Slowbro, but I decide to switch out, I'm pretty sure. back into Forretress to take the resisted return. And he's gone into Garchomp, but I'm going to switch right back into Slowbro. I don't want to take the Fire Fang as he goes for the Outrage. That 54% tells me he's definitely Choice Banded. Plus he's now locked into Outrage regardless, so I can go back into Forretress, who takes only 24% from that Outrage before Leftovers. He outrages again, and I'm going to Hidden Power Ice here, bringing him down very low. He will not be able to switch out because Spikes will take him out next turn. And this is where he forfeits. Now, this might not be the best game to represent it, but I will say the rest of my replays with this team easily go into 60 turns. So I picked this one because it's fairly short. I believe it still shows the synergy that this team has. As you can see, I had a Pokemon to check all of his Pokemon. Forretress checked Stoutland. Latias checked Keldeo. Forretress checked Bronzong. Chansey and Forretress and kind of Latias. I'll check Amoonguss once I've slept something. Dugtrio checks and takes out Tyranitar very easily. Slowbro also checks Tyranitar as long as it's not running a fire move. Garchomp is checked well between Slowbro and Forretress. All those Pokemon I had a very solid check, if not counter to. And my 6 Pokemon work extremely well together. As you could see, between Forretress and Slowbro, not many physical attackers will be able to get by me. Chansey pretty much handles all special attackers, and the ones that it can't are handled either by Ninetales roaring them out, or by Latias setting up combines alongside them. And Dugtrio is kind of the keystone of the team by removing those really threatening Pokemon who maybe I can't deal with as well as others. So that is the team of the week. I hope you guys try it out. I understand that, and I'm with you, a lot of people are more comfortable with offensive teams, but I really hope you guys take the time to maybe try this team out. I was never good with defensive teams for a long time, but I am very comfortable in using this one. I believe it works very well in the current metagame as well. It has all the things going for it that you want in this metagame. So yeah, please use this team in a game on the ladder and leave a comment about how it went. How you thought the team handled. Were you comfortable with the slower defensive pace that you had to maintain? Did you feel you were being overwhelmed? Because it is still a very real possibility. We are playing black and white OU. Being overwhelmed by opposing offense is definitely a cause for concern. But know that if you are going to use this team, you need to always be thinking defensively, pretty much. Always keep your Pokemon in healthy positions and trap those Pokemon. Trap those Tyranitars, trap those Heatrans with Dugtrio. You can use Dugtrio almost kind of recklessly to trap those Pokemon, because when those Pokemon fall, this team swarms in and defeats the opposing team. I would say if I've been able to trap a Tyranitar or an opposing Heatran with Dugtrio, I have won that game 9 times out of 10. So yeah, what do you guys think of this team? Do you like Defensive Sun? I know I do. Know that next week's Team of the Week will be back to a more offensive style. And be on the lookout for more videos. I have 2 more planned at the moment. Like I have the idea up in my head, and we'll be doing those very shortly. So there you go, Team of the Week number 2 officially. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you next time.